I've got a special guest. His name is Nick. He goes by Snooze One, and he's agreed to do some live lettering demonstrations with us. And I'm super excited because not that many people can do this. So Nick, welcome to the show. And why don't you tell people a little bit about who you are?
I'm Nick. Thanks so much for the invite. I'm a lettering artist from Berlin, Germany. Modern lettering, experimental stuff, not only traditional, also digital. And what we are doing today, trying to find new tools to write with. So really this experimental stuff is what excites me.
You originally caught my eye because I was scrolling through Instagram and one of those recommended things, and somehow I found you and I started following you. What I think was really neat about what you're doing is there's a couple different ways that you can do lettering. The way I was taught, it's called build-up lettering, where you sit there and you slowly draw and you kind of make very refined shapes and layers of tracing paper, and eventually you come up with letter forms. What you're doing is a little bit different. You're doing more calligraphy and it's all in real time, right?
Pretty much, yeah. Sometimes it's a mix out of both, out of lettering and calligraphy.
How did you get into doing what it is that you're doing? What started you on this path of lettering?
What got me into it was 2013. I got into graffiti. I was 13 years old at the time. I think, this was when I kind of discovered my passion for letters. I just played around with different styles, different techniques you can do there. But then again, I think like 2 years later, I already got into calligraphy because my godfather gave me a parallel pen. This is a broad edge pen. And this actually got me into black letter calligraphy. On this traditional route, I started to slowly focusing on calligraphy. I kind of moving away from graffiti. That actually introduced me to the world of calligraphy, and I really loved it. And I started to practice brush pen calligraphy and going more into this modern experimental direction that I'm heading into right now, where I kind of try to mix everything, different techniques. So I trying to mix this traditional calligraphy with some of the graffiti influences, but also different lettering techniques, for example, like sign painting. And I really just love letters and just trying to combine different techniques.
So you're talking about combining a lot of different things. Traditional calligraphy, black letter is what many people know when they think of calligraphy. That's what we're talking about. You're taking graffiti letter forms, and you're also taking influences from sign painting and you're merging it together on a digital thing now. Because I watch you work and you make it look so easy. That's a sign of skill and practice. And I'm like, oh my God, I wish I could do that. I also like the little flourishes that you add. And now that we know your backstory in terms of your origin, in terms of doing street art, it makes a lot of sense when I look at the body of work, because you add some like flicks of like paint splatter onto your things. You build things up and you'll do like little line drawings and adding highlights, things that are very reminiscent of graffiti art. Without further ado, let's do this. What is your digital platform of choice? Are you using Photoshop? Are you using Procreate? What are you using?
Mainly using Procreate. I think like you have the most potential with brushes there, and that's kind of what I'm doing on Procreate, just experimenting with different brushes, different effects. I also use Affinity Designer for like vector stuff on my iPad, writing mainly Procreate.
And do you do this as a hobby or you do this as a professional?
That's a tricky question. So I'm studying right now on the side. Oh no, on the side it's a full-time study, visual communication. Yeah, it's kind of hard to put a name on it. I would love to continue this and to keep the focus on it.
Yeah. So you're a full-time student studying visual communication. Where are you going to school and what year are you in school?
Right now we have holidays, and next semester would be the last if I'm keeping track of it.
So you're in your final year. So you're a senior in college?
If you can say that. It's university here, but pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. So you have like two more semesters to finish and then you graduate, right?
Exactly, yeah. And that's one, and the other one I'm writing my thesis.
And so you're a full-time student, you're also doing lettering on the side, just part of your passion, your creativity. Have you found a lot of applications in your visual communication program for you to use your lettering and calligraphy skills?
Oh, that's a tough question. Yeah, it's definitely tricky because my university actually not has this focus on type. We recently got a new professor for typography, and he opened a calligraphy class for the first time at my university. But other than that, I'm always trying to bring letters into the projects. But on the other hand, it's also really cool to kind of do something different and get a little bit out of your comfort zone and learn new techniques. But yeah, I'm always trying to connect it, but there's not always the possibility.
Yeah, I could see the limitations, but I'm sure once you get into the workforce, you'll find a way to blend those two things together. Because I can see you doing lettering and calligraphy as parts of like a pattern for a package that you designed. So there's some like beautiful typography, identity design work that you do combined with this more textural layering stuff that you do. And anything with type on it, I love more than things without type. So I'm already a fan of the concept, but then let's do this. Why don't we jump into doing a little warm up with you, okay? Because we have a camera that's set up. You've been like super cool and flexible in setting up an overhead camera so that we can actually see what it is that you're doing and we can talk about certain things. Let's just do a little warm up. What's a phrase or something that you like to work on just to kind of get the hand loose and ready to do this?
A phrase.
A phrase or what is your warm up routine before we get too serious with this?
So it's a bit boring, but the normal routine would be a couple of drills just to get this flow
Okay.
right. One of my favorite phrases is it's gonna pay off. So I'm writing this a couple of times as well.
Why don't we start there? So we're looking at this overhead camera. You're on the iPad Pro, right?
Yes.
Okay, and you're in Procreate. I can tell the interface, and you've got this white 3-dimensional room. Why do you start with the room?
It's open. This is one of the backgrounds from the 3D brushes, so you get this kind of space, this dimension. Yeah, I usually don't like to start with a white background, so this gives me a little bit of texture to begin with.
So you're looking through some brushes right now?
Yes, I had one of mine. Let me check. One of my favorite, actually. It is. It's a nice.
These are one of your brushes that you've designed?
Exactly like the 3D like brushes. So yeah, this is a chisel tip with a smooth shadow.
It's almost like Square's toothpaste.
Yeah, I heard this a lot. So I'm actually usually start with a portrait. I'm usually writing in a portrait mode, not landscape. It's more comfortable because I'm usually, when I'm working traditional, I'm writing on paper. I usually try to fit this format. So I kind of do this digital as well. And when I start, I usually actually not start with this brush. Let's pick just a basic fine brush to make some fine lines. And I start with a rough layout. So the phrase would be, I like to really do a lot of layers to keep the control. Just to have the phrase in front of me.
It is gonna what?
Pay off.
It's gonna pay off. All right, it's gonna pay off. I see. As a reminder for yourself to do the hard work, because eventually it'll work out, right?
Yes.
So what's your next step?
I'm usually trying to do this in my head, but usually my compositions are not that complicated, so just trying to center the words. First one in one row. Let's move this pay. And there's off. It's just a really basic quick sketch of the layout. And I'm creating a new layer, and now I'm just doing some vertical lines, some baselines for the lettering. It's just a straight line, and I'm gonna duplicate this, gonna make a little row, move together, duplicate again. So we're building this really quick and simple layout, just a bunch of lines underneath. Merge them all, lower the opacity, and create a new layer. The rough sketch and the preparation is done, so I'm trying to search for the brush again. I think with the style, I'm actually going to do something with this sign painting, casual letters inspired style that I mentioned earlier. And the good thing with digital is you can redo a lot of stuff, so I'm redoing a lot of strokes and I get it perfectly. And I'm trying to kind of keep every word on a new layer, so I keep the control if I want to later on kind of adjust something or...
Every word's on its own layer?
Yes, exactly. Let me color the background really quick. This red color, using a different blend mode. This one. Right, just a little bit of contrast going on. And now they're gonna.
What kind of lettering style or category is this?
It's hard to put a name on it, but it has elements of this sign painting casual letters with this angle and this S, for example, but it's not really following the principles. It's a bit loose. It's really just, in the end, something intuitive. I'm just writing. I'm not thinking about it that much and just trying to get in the flow. Okay, so this is the first very rough lettering. I'm gonna move this last one a little bit to the left. And I noticed the first one is a bit big in comparison to the other words. I'm gonna do these again. Maybe a little bit smaller. And the good thing with this digital stuff is I can just lower the opacity and write over it again. I'm at this. And maybe I'm writing the eyes a little bit different. Just to get a better overall shape. Can now delete this layer, create a new one, and I want to create a top. And the thing I want to aim for in the end is this oval kind of shape for the whole lettering. So everything is kind of in this shape. So we have a nice balance and composition. Pretty simple stuff.
So when you're drawing your letter forms, I'm going to make the assumption that this is from a very specific alphabet you've drawn in your mind many times.
Yeah, but also I'm really, I don't have a really fixed alphabet in mind for every letter. A bit flexible. For example, with this I in the beginning, I want to be flexible and change styles if this fits in the composition. changing. So it's really not fixed and set in stone. But of course, you want to keep the overall tonality the same, but you have it always a little bit.
And when you're drawing the letter forms, are you trying to make them fit together like a puzzle? Is that what you're doing?
Actually, good point, yeah. Sometimes I want to have the words, the individual letters on top of each other, but sometimes you get a nice look if you really just puzzle them together.
So what's the next step here?
I would move the first word a little bit down so we get a nice shadow on the... Oh, let's move this up so we have a nice shadow here. I can now delete the layout. I noticed I'm really just a little bit off all the letters, so I'm gonna select them all and move them to the middle. And I can delete this sketch in the beginning. Yeah, now when I look at it, the last word might need to go a little bit right. I'm just doing a little, just minor adjustments here to fit the overall balance before going on with further detail. Trying to rearrange everything in place. I'm now noticing that the gonna is a bit tight in comparison to the other words. I would just rewrite this really quick and make it fit with the other words. I'm kind of a perfectionist with all these details, sometimes a little bit too much, but I want to get it just perfect before going on with the details. Maybe I make this a little bit bigger, more to the right. I don't like this A.
Why you don't like the A? What are you trying to work out here?
I feel like it's off. The G is really big, for example. And I want to make it this kind of the same size. But I have this element down here. Let me erase that. Do the A a little bit bigger. Okay, we're getting there.
You thought it was too tight, so you're trying to make it a little wider, and you decided to do like a drop cap for the G, and then you thought maybe for balance and symmetry, you want to make the A big, but it created a lot of problems for you.
Exactly, yeah.
So what's the next step here?
All right, now that we have our kind of our base lettering, I usually go on with the details. Noticing here we have a little element right here. Let me write this. Let's add another one on the right side. Yes. And now, yeah, I'm just thinking what we can do next. Usually my go-to thing is a couple of rough lines around the lettering to give it a kind of the second outline, not the second outline, the kind of rough outline to give the whole lettering just a bit more dynamic. And I'm using these finer brushes right here. This one is a sharp one. Let's create a new layer. Let's choose a white, and I'm really just trying to trace these letters, but really rough. I don't know, sketch-like look, this unfinished style, just going around the lettering.
What's the thinking behind where those lines go?
Yeah, it's really intuitive, but I'm always trying to keep the overall composition and the balance in mind with all the details. So I don't want to add details just for the sake of it, but they always should kind of fill the space, add the overall balance. I don't try to overdo it with the details. For example, I don't want to add any lines in the middle here because it would be too much. Also, you keep a good balance between the lettering and these fine lines. Maybe rather add one here to kind of fill this space. And another detail I like to add is paint splatters. You mentioned earlier these circles, also a great way to fill some space. Let's change the brush, round one, create a new layer, and now I'm gonna just paint some circles in. For example, this spot, there's this empty space, which is good because you can read it, but you can also fill it up with these paint splatters, if you like to call them. I'm just gonna add a couple ones around the lettering, just keep this overall shape I mentioned earlier. Yeah, so for the next detail, I'm thinking about adding a black and red look, or maybe some more thicker lines, just to support this dynamic, this flow of the letters.
See, I always assumed you had a paint splatter brush, but you actually go and paint the splatter in by hand?
So yeah, I also have I also made paint splatters brushes, but for this one I kind of want to keep it simple, not overdo it, and a lot more control if we do it by hand. I think we reach a point where I would overdo it with the details. I think I would call this finished.
What is the wet look because sometimes I see a two-tone thing where you do a base color and then you apply another color on top.
So there are definitely brushes where you can have this wet watercolor-like effect and do these landing effects. I'll show you a couple. This is the color pack that I made actually with these wet mix brushes that you mentioned. Let me show you. And they have this color dynamic. This big color. I mean this, where the color kind of fades.
That's an illusion. It's 2D, right? It's not in 3D space.
2D, yeah. Do you have a new phrase for me?
I do. My new phrase for you is just try it.
Oh, that's a good one. Just try it. I'm gonna just write it down real quick.
Same process again, right? First to work out the letter forms, the composition, and then use that as a guide.
Exactly, yeah. No, this wasn't a phrase.
No, just try it. Just try it, not just do it.
Yeah.
Because just do it is Nike's thing, and my thing was like just try it.
Just do it, right? Oh man, I'm off here.
Just try it, yeah.
Just try it. And this is what I mentioned. What I mentioned. I see just letters and that it. Just try it. Okay, here we go. Just try it. That's a nice one. slanted one this time. Let me scale this up. Let me show. I think I'm just gonna freehand this just as a really rough reference. I've noticed these are not perfect spaced, but I'm gonna do this while writing the blue that we had. And the cool thing with these color dynamics, you can go over it and you get this nice paint-like effect.
Like a watercolor effect.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
So I'm not writing these in one single stroke, but I'm just trying to paint these. And for this time, I'm thinking it goes in a similar direction as we had in the last one, but I want to make it a bit more rough to really get most of these brushes and this texture and this color. So I'm just try. It's gonna be tricky because the adjust is really long, the try is a little bit shorter, and we get this triangle-like shape. I'm not a big fan of this shape, so I'm trying to maybe work around this.
What if you put on 2 lines? So just and then try it, because one will have 5 and one will have 4 letters.
Oh, that's actually a good idea. Yeah. Let me turn this and rotate everything. I think we need to scale this one down. So let's move this up. 2 lines. Try it. Just trying to eyeball the space I'm gonna need. I think this should work. I think actually we can write a little bit bigger. Kind of the style that I wanted. I always struggle with the T. It's always hard to put it in a good shape. Always feels a bit lost in the end. And I'm gonna do the adjust again to fit this style I did in the try it. Let me move this up a little bit. Go to the new layer. Rewrite it.
You find that having the sleeve on your hand helps you to write, creates less friction?
Exactly, yeah. I'm also using traditional pieces because you don't get stuck with your palm and you get a smooth motion. And the extra bonus on the iPad is you don't have this. I mean, the iPad also already has this palm detection, but it doesn't really always work. And this just guarantees you don't make accidental strokes with your palm. And it's also really good for hot days. I mean, we have like 30 degrees right now here in Berlin, and you keep your palm smooth. It's just easier to write. Now I think when I look at the whole piece, let's delete the layer beneath, and I think it just kind of falls to the right. So I'm gonna select it and move it a little bit up to keep this angle. I think it's a bit tricky. I don't want to touch this T right here, so you can still read the I. I might have to. I don't want to move it too near the try. It's kind of a tricky spot, let me think. I think this could work. And I think a line underneath the phrase kind of emphasizes it.
It also connects those two things because the first just is 4 letters, the try is 2 words and 5 letters with a space. So adding a line helps to anchor and bring those two things together.
Oh, that's a good point, yeah. Here we have this nice shape again. And I'm gonna delete the layout layer and this sketch edit on the top left. And I think we can play with the second color. The yellow would be nice. Just gonna write on top of it. Gonna lower the opacity of the brush so we get a better texture. Maybe just some accents to bring in the second color.
Is this also one of your brushes, or is this a commercially available brush?
Yeah, this is also one of my brushes, but they're actually all available. Right, it's kind of a bit more into the greenish area. I'm gonna change the colors with this filter. I think like a red, orange, kind of yellow would be a better fit. Yeah, that's look good. Can move on with a couple more details, and I think I'm gonna keep this color and let's see what we have here. Oh, I can show you this letter brush that we talked about. So for this one, I kind of want this rough look and this white style, so this splatter brush comes in handy just to add some quick splatters to give it a bit more of this rough and white look. And I'm picking the color with this eyedropper to have the same colors as in the lettering. And again, I'm just trying to keep this overall balance and to fill up some of of the empty spaces with these letters already.
So you started off with like a watercolor brush and you built it up with another color so you can get some color variation, and you added splashes to kind of add some texture to roughen it up a little bit, right?
Exactly, yeah. So it always starts with this base lettering, and from there just add more details and refine the whole lettering. I think we can add also a couple of these rough lines. Really just one of my favorite details. Always give the whole lettering a nice dynamic. I'm thinking I might overusing these rough lines. I'm almost using them in every of my pieces.
I see that.
Yeah.
But it becomes part of your signature style.
Kinda, yeah.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
But yeah, it might be a good balance between keeping it as a signature style, not overdoing it. Let's pick this black. I kind of don't like this empty space right here. It's kind of screaming at me. Let's pick this sparkle brush just to add some. I actually don't know what it is. Some spray-like effects. I don't know, it might be too much. Let's see what we can do about this.
So for people watching, I just want to let them know, if you check the show notes underneath this video, we'll provide links to any brushes that you're using, including the ones that you've made, right?
Awesome, yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I just want to get covered. No, I don't want to overdo it with this brush. It's really heavy.
How many different brush packs do you have, Nick?
Oh, I think it's about 8 or 7, something about this.
Okay, quite a few. And what do they sell for?
The price point?
Yeah.
Around, I'm always confused with this, offering them in US dollar and euro and for commercial and personal, so I have a bit numbers in mind, but I think around 50 to 18 and 20, 25, something in this price range. It still feels a little bit empty. I think we can do about something about this white background. Let me think, maybe like a bright yellow. And let's pick another brush. Oh, I love this one. It's a broad one. I'm going to lower the opacity of the layer already. I just want to have a really light background texture to kind of get rid of this white canvas. I kind of like this. And now I'm gonna add another detail I like to add is a couple of elements at the edge of the lettering or the edge of the artwork to kind of frame this whole lettering, to really just frame it and give it a bit more spot. Let's go back to this other blush. Where is it? The dry one. Paint around. Yes, here it is. Create a new layer. It's a different color shade. Let's pick this one. Just really some rough lines. I kind of want them bigger. Let's do it like this. Just gonna scale this up a little bit. For a new layer. Scale this up not too much. I think we're getting there. Maybe something like this. Gonna select it.
Talk me through what you're doing right now. You're just trying to fill in the negative space with other letters. Like we found this phrase inside of a bunch of other words.
Exactly, yeah. So I'm trying to fill a bit of the space around the lettering and yeah, really just frame it. And I really like this kind of dimension, as if the lettering would be, you have these elements flying around and everything's moving. Give this piece just a bit more dynamic. I'm basically just doing either just rough shapes or letters that are used in lettering, but mainly yeah, just a couple rough shapes. I think this area could be good here. Maybe a stroke up here, stroke down here, and just this spot. Let's put a U there, and you already have this filled up. I think we could either lower the brightness. No, that's not good. I kind of want to keep the focus on the lettering. Let's merge them all together. Let's try immersion blur. I think that could be cool. Might be too much. Perspective blur was what I was searching for. Maybe not too much, just a little bit to make them look as if they were flying away. And maybe lower the saturation a bit. And the brightness, I think, yeah. Kind of just keep the focus on lettering, but fills up this empty space around it. Yeah, I think, yeah.
Anything else you would do to this?
We reached the, let me see, just a bit to the top. I'm gonna move this whole lettering. I'm gonna select it. Gonna move it a little bit down. But yeah, I think we reached the point where either could overdo it, keep it at this sweet spot.
I have one more challenge for you to do before we run out of time here, which is I'd like to see some of your black lettering, and I'm gonna give you a new phrase to work with. Can we do that?
Oh, yes.
The phrase is loud introvert, or do you want to use short words?
Oh, that's good. It's okay. It's great. I like a challenge.
Okay, let's try that. Loud introvert.
Yes. Okay. Oh, black letter. Yeah, I love doing black letter, but I feel like I'm always out of practice. Let's pick another one, like a good textured chisel tip brush. I think this one could be nice. I've chosen a kind of paper-like texture here. And again, I'm gonna draw in 2 rows with the same brush just to keep it quick and simple. So let's make it a bit smaller to have some space afterwards. That looks sweet. Alright, let's merge these together, lower the opacity, and create a new layer. Okay, loud intro right? Okay. I'm always forgetting what I want to write. Loud intro right? Okay, let's scale this up. That looks good. And I don't like this one, not the brush I was searching for. Let me see if I can find the one. Let's get one with a bit more texture. What about this one? Oh yeah, that was the one. Nice. And the cool thing is you can kind of control the texture with your pressure. So when I'm applying low pressure, you get like almost no texture. But when I'm applying more pressure, you get more texture. All right, let's do a new layer for the next letter. One of the things that actually got me from this traditional calligraphy to more expressive brush calligraphy, find that sweet spot. On the one hand, I really love this, that you have to kind of perfect these letters and every letter should look the same. But on the other hand, I've really felt a bit restricted, that free to play with the letters. One point was because of one wasn't really actually learning the basics, so wasn't really understanding the letter forms, but always felt a bit restricted. But it's also kind of fun to really just sit down and make these strokes. Also, it's a different speed. My other lettering works, it's quite fast, and with this traditional stuff, you really just have to sit down and focus. Okay, loud. Okay, now I have it. Let me think how I...
Now, would this be easier if you had your flat pen?
I think black letter, I'm way more comfortable doing it traditionally with the edge, because it's kind of slippery, and I know a lot of people who actually do black letter calligraphy on the iPad, but I haven't come around to it.
Well, because the edge of the pen helps you to kind of know where you're at, and you could pull your strokes. This is a little bit different.
Yeah, I think this brush is one of these brushes where you have this dynamic angle of the pen, so it's kind of orientating to the angle of your Apple Pencil, but you can keep it actually on a fixed position. But I like this dynamic, but it's a bit downside if you want to do black letter calligraphy. Okay, let's get the spacing. Yeah, I think we have the first words.
Looks like I challenge you with this black letter thing.
I'm thinking if I should start with a drop cap. Alright, let's freestyle this. Oh, it's a small one.
It's the capital letters that kill you.
Yeah. Alright, I'm gonna do a small one, and maybe I will remember the big one later. Just trying to get it perfect. Also, downside with this digital, you want to repeat it because you undo it until you get it perfect. And if we would do it traditionally, I wouldn't have this chance. Let me do some quick adjustments to this brush.
You can turn it off.
Yes, let's turn this off. Give this nice rotation. Yeah, I'm just rotating the brush shapes. Still not. Oh man, I think it was actually. That's more like it.
Now it's behaving.
Yes. And I can't really get past this N. I just keep it that way. Notice I need a little bit more space for the T, so let's move our first word a little bit up. What I miss while doing black letter digital is this pen manipulation you have when working traditional, so you can kind of rotate the pen, kind of tilt the whole nib, and this is kind of missing here.
Digital is good for a lot of things. It's not good for everything.
I mean, like, what I love about digital is that you can explore these different effects and new possibilities that you actually can't do while working traditionally, so you can take full advantage of this digital world. I like the challenge to trying to recreate traditional effects to digital mediums like these textured brushes, but I feel like it isn't really the same. You're always missing something, so I'm kind of trying to explore more different effects like these 3D brushes that we had earlier. Really just stuff that you can't do while working traditionally. It's E-R-T, right? As in
Intro ERT, yeah.
ERT, yeah, no, good.
We're in the home stretch here.
The biggest fear to make a typo.
Hey, we're human, everybody.
Yeah. Actually, I posted I think 3 works a couple years ago that had some typos in it. I think it was live and all this stuff. So I mixed a V with F, and I didn't notice this until like 1 hour ago. Everybody was commenting, dude, you missed a letter, or you wrote the wrong letter. And yeah, after you spend like 2 hours on the lettering, that's all you want to hear. And at some point, you just focus so much on the individual letters that you kind of forget the whole word that you were writing.
Well, it also could be that you're German and you're writing English, and so there's also this thing that you're trying to keep in your mind as well, right?
For sure, yeah. I'm also, how do you call it? I don't know. I'm trying. Sometimes I just mix letters. I'm not really heavily, but my mother always keeps saying it.
Oh, like dyslexic? I have some form of dyslexia as well because I transpose letters all the time. Very mild.
Okay, then with the last.
Are you familiar with the work of Seb Lester?
Oh yeah, for sure.
And he does everything traditionally, and his calligraphy is just crazy good.
It's insane, yeah. I think, yeah, he was one of the first person that I saw doing calligraphy. But he did actually do the Apple commercial for the iPad. But yeah, his traditional work is insane. Oh man, I might should have done a more rough black letter than trying to do this the traditional way and trying to make it perfect.
Well, if you guys all are interested in seeing more of Nick's work, you would go to his Snooze.one. You can check out his work. He's got over 200,000 followers, and he's got a mix of digital and traditional media that he's working on. And don't be fooled, young people. If you see him doing something crazy on an iPad, don't try to do this on your own iPad. You will destroy your iPad. Some visual trickery. Now you're adding some flourishes to fill in the negative space to make it feel balanced, right?
Exactly, yeah. At least I'm trying here with the pencil. Actually, I could just copy it and flip it. Perfect. Let's choose a fine brush. Put in some of the fine lines that I couldn't do with the broad brush. Wait, this has a water effect to it.
Needed to be more like pen, right?
Exactly, yeah. Let me shoot one from the other pack.
Do you make a decent amount of money selling brush packs?
I can't complain. No, it's definitely also helps me to keep a kind of still consistent, stable income. Besides my commission, takes a lot of pressure off my shoulders while running these pricing negotiations.
So when you do commission pieces, is it like as a commercial thing, or is it somebody personally saying, "Hey, I'd love a phrase. Can you make me a poster?" What is it?
Yeah, pretty much both of them. I started to do more like commercial videography. I'm shooting a couple of smaller videos for campaigns and stuff with my lettering and with my calligraphy, but also doing custom work, custom artworks, standard stuff like t-shirt designs or clothing designs, logo work. So it's really just the whole range, everything you can do with letters pretty much. But I'm trying to focus more on this experimental direction and doing these advertising videos. Okay, I'm just gonna add a couple more rough lines and details to fill up some of the space. And adding some details to the letters that I couldn't have done with the broad brush.
So if somebody wants you to do like a personal commission, just a phrase because they want a piece of artwork, how much do you charge to do that?
It really just depends on, of course, on the size and the materials they want. My last commission for I think it was an A3 with the lettering was about, I think like 500, something like this.
If you can sit down and do this in not too much time, and somebody gets like a custom piece of artwork from you with a phrase, and you're in school and you're making decent money, you could buy sneakers and anything that you want. I think that's pretty cool.
For sure, yeah. Just putting all my money back into this lettering thing, into my equipment and stuff. But of course, yeah, it depends. If you like a traditional piece is different for me. I would do like a digital lettering, because you can see it's much more quicker than I would sit down do this traditionally.
Have you been commissioned by any like large brands to do some lettering for a campaign or anything?
Yeah, I'm working on a bigger ad video thing right now, and also doing like a traditional lettering piece for their office for a brand in the UK. I'm thinking what some names that I could drop, but a couple of them
Brain freeze.
I can't say. In the last couple of years, my focus was really on these brush packs and to new stuff for them. In the end, we can add some really fine lines to top it all off for the final touch. I don't want to overdo it. Just to kind of support this dynamic. I'm a bit out of practice with these flourishes.
Flourishes, yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, let's do like a big one down here. Oh man, that could work.
Yeah, I find flourishes to be pretty difficult to master because it's like there's a way to do it and it's very intuitive. There's no rules that you can apply. It's just about filling the space and doing something that complements the letter forms.
Yes, and it's hard to keep the balance. Yeah, not overdo it, and to make them actually make sense, that you're not just adding them for the sake of it. It's definitely an art form itself. Now I'm feeling like these couple of spaces are a bit empty. This one, for example, maybe I could add, yeah, that looks good. And now these left and right kind of look empty. Maybe I could do something like this. I don't know. Okay, I think I better leave it like that.
Okay. All right, let's cut back to the main camera here. That was awesome. Thank you very much for doing that. I'm sorry to like push you into the black letter space and being kind of on the spot to be able to do that, but it was really neat to watch you work and see the different techniques. We got to see 3 different styles, right? One that's kind of more inspired by like sign lettering style, like a little bit more graffiti in its origin. The second one, we saw you do something with watercolor, so it had a more natural media feel. And then I pushed you to do the black letter, which I don't think the Apple Pencil is ideally suited for. It's one of those things where if somebody's doing a lot of calligraphy, it'll flow really smoothly. But as you said, you're a little out of practice of it. But I think you did a wonderful job.
Thanks.
As we're kind of wrapping up here, I just wanted to know from you, if people want to find out more about the things that you're doing, where should they go?
Pretty much my Instagram is where I'm the most active. I'm also kind of just starting on TikTok, but it's the same stuff there. So yeah, Instagram would be the go-to page.
And if you want to go and see some of his products, where would they go to see that?
These are all available on my website, so snoozeone.com, and also on like marketplaces like Creative Market and Design Cards.
So thanks so much. It was a pleasure to watch you work. And you're one of the few people who can actually demonstrate what they're doing in real time. I wanted to take advantage of that. And so people, if you're impressed, I would suggest that you get started and put in a couple of years of practice, and you're going to eventually get there, right?
That's the spirit, yeah. Yeah, thank you so much for having me as well. It's been a long dream of mine to be on this show. I finally can tick this off my bucket list.
That's so awesome. So I was glad that when I invited you, you said yes immediately, and that was so awesome. And I hope that when I'm in Germany next time, we can get together and I could see you working in real life.
That would be awesome, yeah. Maybe soon as well.
Okay. All right. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks so much.